In this video, we'll look at how to use semicolons. That's a semicolon. We'll look at how semicolons are used in lists and how semicolons are used to join two sentences. So let's start by looking at semicolons in lists. Here's a normal list. The team members will be as follows: Dr. Peebles, Mr. Jones, Mr. Bakewell. Let's write that list out in a full sentence. And you can see that the list items are separated by commas. That's all normal. But what if our list were more complicated than that? Dr. Peebles, exhibition leader, Mr. Jones, chief scientist, Mr. Bakewell, the chef. What would this look like if we wrote it out in a full sentence? Well, list item 1 is there, it has its own comma. List item 2 has its own comma, and list item 3 has its own comma. There they are. So to outrank those commas and to separate the list items, we've used semicolons. I should just say that not all of your list items would have to have a comma. Only one of them need have. So look at list item 2 here. Only that one has a comma in. There it is. But we've still used semicolons to separate the list items because we need to outrank the comma in list item 2. Let's look at another example. I will visit, then we've got a list of 3 things. Here's list item 1, Inverness, Aberdeen and Glasgow in Scotland. List item 2, Aberystwyth and Cardiff in Wales. List item 3, Plymouth, Southampton and Oxford in England. And you can see that list item 1 has its commas and list item 3 has commas in. And as before, we've used semicolons to outrank those commas to separate all the list items. Now let's go back to our first example, but let's add a little bit more information. Look at entry 2, Mr. Jones, chief scientist, my stepbrother. Okay, and there you can see it in the sentence written out in full. So what we have is like a hierarchy of punctuation in lists. You start with commas and you move up to semicolons, but down to brackets or parentheses. I should just say that if your list gets this complicated, you should probably think about writing it out in bullets and not as a complete sentence. So that was semicolons in lists. Next, we'll look at how semicolons can be used to join two sentences. Let's start with a couple of sentences. Never pick a fight with an ugly person, they've got nothing to lose. And here you can see that the first sentence ends in a period or full stop, and that's correct. But these two sentences are very closely linked, and you may feel that a period or a full stop is too much of an abrupt halt. So you can smooth the transition between these sentences with a semicolon. Now, a semicolon makes the transition from sentence 1 to sentence 2 much smoother. Let's look at another example. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. Well, the author has decided that these two sentences, or independent clauses as they've now become, are so closely connected that a period or a full stop would be too much of an abrupt halt, and so he's opted for a semicolon. That's correct. I just want to show you this example. Vacation used to be a luxury, however, in today's world it's become a necessity. I wanted to show you it because of the word however. The word however is what's called a transitional phrase, or you'll sometimes hear it called a conjunctive adverb. And it usually sits at the start of a sentence in order to make a link to the previous sentence. Now, because of the nature of that, it is quite common to see a semicolon before a transitional phrase, but it is correct with a period or a full stop before. Here it is again with a semicolon. And a semicolon gives a smoother transition from sentence 1 to sentence 2, and that's correct. However is the most common transitional phrase, but there are others. As a result, consequently, therefore, also, subsequently, and it is very common to see these preceded with a semicolon. I should just say, don't overuse semicolons. If you overuse semicolons, you'll just annoy your readers. I must also tell you that you cannot put a comma before a conjunctive adverb or a transitional phrase. That is a mistake called a run-on error, and it's a very common mistake, especially with the word however. I'd very quickly like to cover this one. Rather surprisingly, the majestic pike is hardly used in cooking today. That's sentence 1. But in Victorian times, pastry top pike was a very common dish. That's sentence 2. And you can see that both sentences have their own commas. Well, these sentences, or independent clauses as they've now become, are joined by the conjunction but. And to outrank the commas that are in those sentences or independent clauses either side, it is possible to use a semicolon before the conjunction. This is correct, but I must just say that this is a rather outdated style, but you might come across it. In summary, that's how you use semicolons in lists. Remember this example. And how you use semicolons to join two sentences to make the transition from one sentence to the next a little smoother. Remember this example. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out some of our other videos on grammarmonster.com. You will also find us on Twitter and on Facebook.